Hey Minecraft filmmakers! So you've installed Flashback Mod and made your first recordings? What's next? Today we're diving into the world of cinematic composition using the Flashback Mod. We'll explore the powerful rule of thirds and 3 essential shots that every Minecraft cinematographer should know. Let's get started. If you still need the mod, check out my videos for instructions on installing it on PC or Mac. It'll show you how to enable the mod and turn on automatic recording. But once you have recorded footage, jump into it from the title screen with this icon and click the play button next to the recording you want. It's going to start you off inside of your head, which is not a very good shot, but the first thing I want you to do before you do anything else is come down here to the other section and enable the rule of thirds guide, and we'll talk about why. The rule of thirds is a fundamental principle in visual composition that's been used by artists and photographers for centuries. Here's why it works. By placing key elements along the lines or at the intersections of a 3x3 grid, we create a more balanced and aesthetically pleasing image. Studies show that the human eye naturally gravitates towards these intersection points, making your composition more engaging. Also, off-center placement adds a subtle tension to your shots, making them more dynamic and interesting. Now that you have your rule of thirds guide on and you know how to use it, let's cover the most essential shots you need to know. The establishing shot is a critical component of cinematic storytelling, serving as a visual anchor that orients the audience and sets the stage for the action to come. It's typically used at the beginning of a scene or sequence to provide context, establish location, and sometimes convey the passage of time. This shot is so crucial because it helps viewers quickly understand where they are in the story world, creating a sense of place that enhances immersion and narrative comprehension.
Elsa! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Anna, go back to sleep.
Before we jump into our shot, I just want to mention a couple more settings. I'll usually turn off render name tags. I'll also usually turn on override FOV. And I'll set it to something between 40 and 50. It gives it a much more cinematic feel, and it's more representative of the kind of focal length that you would have on an actual camera. We should also quickly break down the timeline. The timeline in Flashback Mod is essentially your control center for creating cinematic shots. Think of it as a visual representation of your recording from start to finish. And remember, you're recording everything around your character in 3D. Every moment you captured is laid out on this horizontal bar. This is where we're going to place markers called keyframes that tell the mod exactly how your camera should behave at specific moments. You can navigate your timeline by clicking anywhere on it, and that's going to take you to that point in the action. You can also click and hold and scrub forward. You can't scrub back, however. You've got to go back, let go, click, and scrub forward again. Another thing you can do is use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out. You can also grab the side of the zoomed in portion of the window. You can move it along your timeline, and you can resize it from here as well. This is going to give you much more precise control over individual points in time. And it's really handy, especially if you have a long recording. So I'm just going to zoom in right toward the end of my recording here. This looks like about where I want to capture the shot. So take a minute right now, go find a place where you want to create an establishing shot, and put your camera in place where you want your shot to end up when it's finished. What we're going to do is we're going to tilt our camera up, take a keyframe, and then we're going to tilt it down into the position that you choose right now. When you have that ready, come back and I'll show you how to do it. And you'll notice here I'm trying to use rule of thirds to put my island right on the line, as well as my character. And this is where I want things to end up, but I don't want it to end up right here. I want it to start here, and I want it to end, maybe like 5 seconds or so later. Let's just say like right about here. This is where I want to put my first keyframe. In order to do that, I need to add an element. I'm going to add a camera to my timeline. Now I can see I've got the line for the camera, and I'm going to click on Add Keyframe. What that essentially did is added a camera into my world that captures this exact frame at this exact moment in time. Now I want to go back to a few seconds ago, and I want to pan up and set another keyframe there. So as you can see, I can go forward and back in time, but my camera placement is going to represent that moment in time at that angle. And in order to get the right angle for this one, I like to turn on this lock yaw button under the movement controls. So you've got this movement toggle up at the top. You can choose different axes to lock. And if you only want to be able to do a tilt of your camera, you want to lock the yaw. And if you want to do an exact pan, you lock your pitch. And if you get off track and you're like, oh no, I got off of where my keyframe was, you can right click on your keyframe and click on apply. It's going to apply that to where you're at in your timeline. So yes, I messed up. I can go back, get back to where I was, and get that perfect tilt down. And I'm going to start just above the trees. I'm going to close out of this for now, add that keyframe. And so you can see this yellow outline now. That is the camera path. That's going to show where my camera's headed. If I back out a little bit, I can see what's going on. You see the green here represents the shot that my camera is going to start taking, and the yellow represents where it's going to finish up. And if I scroll across here, you can look at what the tilt is going to do. And if I were to move my camera somewhere else, you'd be able to see that camera moving across the timeline. And if you go right up to it, you can basically see what that camera sees. So it's really handy. If you don't like the camera path, you can turn it off. But I usually like to keep it on because it gives me a good idea of what I'm going to see. So let's play it back and see what we got. All right, it's going to do a nice pan down. It's a little glitchy, but don't worry about that. When it renders, it'll be just fine. So let's say I'm happy with that shot and I want to export it. I can hold Shift to snap to my keyframe here. If that's right where I want to start, I'm going to push the I key. That's the in of my export. For the out, I'm going to do the same thing. Hold Shift, snap to my end keyframe, push the O button. In fact, I might want to give a little bit more after and a little bit before. And I recommend you do this as a general practice because you can always cut out that extra in your editing software. But once you get to your editing software, you can't add more to your timeline. So just give yourself a little breathing room. I might even give myself a few seconds at the end. Then you're going to go to File, Export Video. I changed this to match my screen resolution. You could keep the defaults and just hit Start Export. Then you're going to give it a name. And now it's going to jump into rendering each and every frame of our tilt down shot one by one and create that video file. So what makes Flashback Mod truly special is how it completely transforms the traditional filmmaking process. In conventional cinematography, you have to plan each and every camera angle before shooting. It's usually limited by time, budget, and physical constraints. But with Flashback Mod, you're essentially recording a complete 3D moment in time. Once you've captured your Minecraft sequence, you have the unprecedented freedom to place cameras anywhere you want after the fact. Think about what that means. You can experiment with unlimited camera angles, perfect your timing, adjust movements, completely reimagine your shots, all without having to re-record the original action. It's like being a director with an unlimited budget and infinite retakes. You're free to pursue your creative vision without compromise, exploring camera positions and movements that would be impossible or just too expensive in traditional filmmaking. This approach puts the full power of cinematic storytelling directly in your hands. A tilt up can also be great for showcasing a towering build or emphasizing vertical elements. To create this, just reverse what we did before. Start low and end high. Now let's move on to the next essential technique, the close-up. Let's start with the character close-up. So just get real close to your character's face. And you might again need to adjust the flying speed to kind of get everything dialed in the way you want it. You also may want to adjust the FOV to get even closer, uncomfortably close. What's going on with your eyes, bro? So right about here, I'm going to add a keyframe and I'm going to push I for the start of my export. I'm going to hit play. And hit O, and I might add just a slight pan. So I'm going to lock the pitch. Over here just a touch. Just to give the camera ever so little bit of movement. Add that keyframe. And let's play it back. Okay, I don't like how it's all not smooth at the beginning, so I'm just gonna cut that part off. Let's start right about here instead. About here. Even less of this start. About there, maybe. Yeah, that's all right. And we'll go ahead and export that. Let's go see if we can find a turtle. That's kind of cool. But maybe we can find one swimming. Here he is. And let's see, where does he... Oh, he kind of comes into frame there. So that's all right. So let's set our in right there. I'm gonna go ahead and add another camera. And he's gonna come right in for his close-up. And I need to hold this afterward so the camera doesn't move. And my out's gonna be somewhere in there. Again, the O key for out, the I key for in. It's a nice little close-up of that turtle.
Do you want to build a snowman?
The last shot we're going to cover is called the tracking shot. A tracking shot just means the camera moves to follow the subject.
Do the magic! Do the magic!
So now that my character is running, I want to follow the action. So I'm going to set up a type of tracking shot known as the trucking shot that basically just follows right alongside your character, in this case on the horizontal axis. Starting from, right about there. You go to the beginning, you're going to place a camera if you don't have one, add a keyframe, and then just play out the action and follow your character. And this is about where the character ended. So we're going to add another keyframe there. Now let's play this back. Notice how my character gets ahead of me and then my camera gets ahead of my character. This is because we have these keyframes set to smooth. What this does is it manipulates the acceleration to kind of smooth in between the keyframes. But what we want to do in this case, we want a linear motion to track directly with the action. So I'm going to apply a linear type, and you'll notice it changes to a diamond shape. And we'll set this one to linear as well. Now let's play it back. You can see I'm not getting ahead of my subject, I'm not falling behind. The camera is tracking nicely right along with my character. And I'm gonna turn down the render distance a bit, just to keep that distant island out of sight, hopefully. Yes. I want that deserted island feel. And that's it. That's all there is to it for the trucking shot. In the next video, we're going to be talking about some of these other elements, including how to use the FOV dynamically throughout your shot to achieve zoom in, zoom out, dolly zooms, all kinds of fun stuff. And we'll cover time lapse as well. But now that you have these 3 essential shots in your toolkit, it's time to combine them into a compelling sequence. Remember, cinematography isn't just about individual shots, it's about how they flow together and tell a story. Try this. Start with an establishing shot to set the scene, then cut into a close-up to build that emotional connection. Finally, use a tracking shot to follow the action. This simple sequence can create a powerful narrative in just a few seconds. And if you decide to take that cinematic challenge and make your first sequence, please tag me in your video so I can come check it out. Thank you so much for joining me, and remember, keep those cameras rolling, and I'll see you next time on Minecraft Movie Magic.
You're still seeing things, I thought. You hit your head when you fell off the boat, and now you're a little dazed. But did I fall off a boat? I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember anything. In fact, how I got here, or even where here was. Help me! I shouted, scanning the horizon for a ship or a plane or even a speck of land. Please, somebody, anybody! Help! All I got was silence. All I could see was the water and sky. I was alone.